All right, welcome to the video podcast or podcast, or whatever you want to call it. We are tentatively calling it Sync B Sides for now, David. But welcome to the show. I've got to introduce David Wong from Dimples. He's the founder and CEO of the largest golfing app in Malaysia, and I would say the region, but he didn't want me to. So, hey, thanks for coming on, David. You're going to speak a little bit louder because you might notice that David's audio is a little bit softer than mine.
Sure, no problem.
All right, thanks, David. Appreciate that. I can hear you really well.
Okay.
All right, so we got some really interesting topics that I want to touch on because I've worked with you before and Dimples, and I think that what you guys are doing is really cool. I think it's very unique. It's a little different. Golfing is not something that most people are aware of, and you're pushing your education campaigns has been really helpful in helping me understand kind of the allure of golf as well, which I will admit wasn't that easy for me at the start, but I'm definitely coming to understand it a lot more. What I really wanted to touch on during this conversation with you was really how did you actually kind of like focus and grow the mobile app, the Dimples app, right, and kind of get your customers and everything. So maybe you can tell me, how did you identify your growth targets for Dimples?
Growth targets, as in how much we want to grow.
Yeah, so basically, some people say like I want to get like 100 subscribers, 5,000 subscribers, a million subscribers. What were your growth targets, and how did you kind of pick them out?
I guess if you're looking at users, we probably want to just take. So let's say, for example, in Malaysia, the population of golfers is only 300,000. So we can't say we want millions and millions of users just in one country. So based on this, if we hit 30,000 users, that would mean about a 10% penetration, right? Today we're at 50,000 registered users, but that doesn't mean that all of them actually use the app, right? But we got to 50,000 registered users. How do we set these goals? I guess when you're such a young company, you just plow on as much as you can and take whatever you can. But so that's in terms of user acquisition, right?
Yeah.
But then there's also the revenue side as well, because a lot of
Hmm.
users that doesn't generate revenue also doesn't make any sense. So on that sense, I think on revenue side, we've been around for about 6 years.
Yeah.
We've done the non-monetization part for 3 years, and then now it's
Hmm.
monetization for the next 3 years, right? On once we started monetization, I think our revenue was growing 2x every year, which is okay for a young startup, right? At some point, it will plateau. But in terms
Yeah.
of users, it's still growing very organically. I think
Hmm.
every month we get about 1,000 to 2,000 new downloads, new registered users every month. How do we set these? We never really set them. I think, but if we get to 30,000 users, that would be 10%. If we get to 60,000 users, that would be 20% of the market. It's hard to get 50% of a specific market when you're doing a platform like this. But yeah.
Okay, no, so that's interesting, right? Because I think one thing you said is I wish this wasn't true, but unfortunately it is, right? So because you didn't actually set targets, you kind of knew what you wanted, which was as many users as possible. But actually setting a numerical, like a percentage number to that is a bit hard, right? I mean, we face the same issues. I work with a lot of younger companies and SMEs and startups as well, and they're like their target size as much as you can get. And I'm like, that's a bit tough, but all right. No, but it's interesting. It's a good. It's kind of good to be honest about that as well, because I think if you really read all the marketing literature out there, they're like, have very clear targets so you can calculate cost of acquisition, all that other stuff. But realistically, when you're running a business, you're like, if I can get 50 paying customers, brilliant. If I can get 100, even better. But you're not really setting a target that clearly,
The
right?
most important thing to know is your full TAM, your total addressable market, right? So
Yeah.
with our total addressable market in Malaysia of like 300,000 golfers, right? We can't say, oh, we want
Mhm.
500,000 or 600,000, right? Because it doesn't make sense, right? So based on that, then you can have an estimation of what percentage of that target market that you can achieve and what would be good for you. Um, um, yeah.
So I've got a funny story. I know of a founder, someone I worked with, right? Who it was in the healthcare space, and it was about health screenings, and they were trying to target 200,000 health screenings a year, right? But the thing is, they didn't actually know what the total addressable market was, which was fair, and they didn't understand the amount of time it took to do these health screenings from a technical standpoint within the company. So when I actually went and spoke to the team, the operations team dealing with it, they said it would take them 3.5 years to do 200,000 health screenings, and he wanted it done in a 3 month period, right? And I was like, cool. It was interesting because there's a I think when it's too theory based, you're having someone throwing out crazy numbers without being prepared, and then when it's like a really practical base, you're not putting enough effort into figuring out numbers. But there's a realistic aspect. There's a realistic reason for that, right? I mean, you're dealing with 1,000 different things, being a founder and running a company. But I mean, like you mentioned that you hit 50,000 users, and you're growing at an organic rate of about 1,000 to 2,000 downloads a month, right? How do you like? What are some of the platforms or the channels that you're using, or like how is that growth coming? How did you get to 50,000, and how are you getting that organic growth right now?
It's multiple factors, right? So the easy way to do it is just to spend money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Spend money on ads. That's always the easiest way, but it might not be the most sustainable way. So I would say it's not just marketing. It's marketing and it's also product, because you can drive a
Mm-hmm.
ton of users in, but if they don't retain, then all that money is wasted, right?
Yeah.
Equal effort has to be put into your product so that when people come in, they're like, oh, this is good, I'll stay in, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
you come and then it's a shit product and you just kind of leave, and you wasted all that
Yeah.
money. So I think we spend equal amounts of resources on both these parts. In terms of the marketing side, like getting people in, yeah, sure, we run some ads, but ads always cost a lot of money. On the digital front, we do a lot of SEO stuff as well. So when people search for specific keywords, especially for golf, I think we're always ranked quite high. And because golf is such a
Yeah.
small market, so it's easier to rank as well, right? It's not like let's
It's
do
it's not that competitive from an SEO
not
standpoint.
competitive, right? So that's on the digital side. Social media, we just plow a ton of content, and that's how we kind of promote it as well. We do a lot of PR with Sync PR, so that helps too,
What? I've never. No, that's true. Like I mentioned, we work together.
right?
Not so subtle plug. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that,
No problem.
man.
But it helps. It does help, right? Like I mean,
Mm.
we always know third party saying something good about you is better than you saying something good about yourself, right?
Yeah, agreed.
So that's on the digital side, right? But we realize, and I come from a digital background, and Dimples is a digital product, right?
Mm.
But that doesn't mean digital strategies are always the best, right? What we've realized that a lot of our offline strategies actually work very, very well as well, because golf is an offline activity.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes when you're spraying ads on Facebook and everything, yeah, sure, you're targeting golfer audiences and stuff like that, right? But we know there's a lot of wastage somewhere here and there, right? But if we're doing offline stuff, and for golf, it's actually pretty simple, right? Because where are all the golfers at
Hmm.
golf courses and
Yeah, the golf course, basically. Yeah.
so I wouldn't do it in a shopping mall or anything, right? I'll just go to a driving range, and 100% of people there are golfers, which are 100% our target market, right? So we'll go there, we'll talk to golfers there, we'll stick stickers on the driving range tables that is very hard for people to
Hmm.
dig out, right? We'll put banners at the golf courses, right? So these actually work a lot. So this is like the offline stuff.
Yeah.
At the same time, we also, because our base is pretty big now, we also enable the referral program that golfers are rewarded for telling more friends about it. And we built that into the product itself. So every time when they share a game, uh, the new friend will be able to see their referral code and just kind of get incentivized to just download the app and use the app and transact through the app as well. So that has worked quite a bit as well. So offline actually does wonders.
Yeah, no. So I've actually got a couple of stories to share about that, specifically about you. So the first one is every time I ever see you on like Instagram or wherever it is, you're always on a golf course and you call it working. I mean, sure. But I actually saw it firsthand how good you are at like you specifically. So your team's probably really good as well. But how good you are specifically when we were doing a I think you and I just met up in Singapore for a coffee, and then you would because you had some event, and then you saw some golfers, so people who golfers with golf clubs, sitting on the other side of the like coffee shop. You said, "Yeah, give me a minute." I literally saw you walk over, talk to them, introduce Dimples within a 5 minute period, and then you got them to download the app. And I was sitting there going like, I can't do that. That was it was really good. No, it was amazing. I In terms of like what people say that's difficult to scale, I get it, but it's also super impactful because it doesn't really matter whether you're trying to get 10 million of 500,000. If you don't have the resources, getting one is better than getting zero. That's what it always is the case. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that, and they're not willing to kind of put the, I mean, what we call is basically putting the boots on the ground, right? Just running out and doing yourself. That's how I started my business. I would literally go out and go and talk to people. I hated doing it. I still hate doing it, but I would go and talk to people, hundreds, if not thousands of people over the course of like six months to a year. And then next thing you know, we would get customers from that. And I've seen you do it. You're better at it. You're way better than me. So I've seen you do it, and it's really effective. Um, with that in mind, right? Because I think one thing that maybe I want to touch on a little bit as well, because you were mentioning that you were running. It's not just the digital campaigns you guys are running and running ads and stuff, but to you, what does a successful marketing campaign look like to you? And let's focus on digital or traditional, offline, online, whatever you consider to be an effective marketing campaign.
For Dimples or for in
Yeah,
general?
of course, for Dimples, man.
An effective marketing campaign, I don't think we've run any super one hit wonder marketing campaigns yet. But effective just means you're achieving the results that you wanted to. So either it could be user acquisition or it could be revenue. And for us right now, it's all about revenue now, just because we already have the monetization strategy. So more transactions, the better, right? So sometimes, and we learn a lot from the bigger boys, right? The bigger marketplaces, people like Shopee, like Grab, how do they
Hmm.
incentivize these transactions that happen, right? How do they incentivize the urgencies of this to happen, right? So for example, like something we're going to run on 12/12, which we haven't announced yet, but since we're here, I'm just going to say it, right? We're probably going to give out quite a bit of free golf um, at a, not so, sorry, not free golf, like heavily discounted golf if you buy it on
Hmm.
that day itself, right? You
Yeah.
don't have to
So you
play
create
on
that urgency factor, right?
just urgency, right? Just spend now, right? Because these golfers are going to be spending already anyway, right? So why not just spend it now, right? We're going to give you the incentive to spend now, but you can play anytime for the next, a month or two. Doesn't matter. Just buy a game like in advance. So for us, if that works and we get to spend a ton of money on that campaign, that means we're generating a ton of transactions and GMV revenue for that
Hmm.
campaign. Then that works. Yeah. So it's very transactional
Okay.
based, very much like how Shopee and Grab will run it.
Now that's interesting. That's actually on a related note, like somewhat of a related note is you've actually turned Dimples kind of into like your own, like kind of like a platform, right? Like a platform for golfers as well. So I don't want to call you all a content platform because I think that's also not the most accurate way to describe you guys. But there is a ton of content that flows through the Dimples app and on your website and stuff like that. You've also brought on like brands that kind of like are partnering with you guys as well, right? To kind of reach your target audience. Anyone that we can mention?
So from early days, we've worked a lot with brands like Adidas.
Hmm.
They've come on as a partner since almost the beginning, right? They've understood that this segment of golfers is a different segment or a new segment of golfers.
Yeah.
And it's a different channel to reach golfers as well, not just the usual
Hmm.
channels. And it's going to be a growing channel, just
Yeah.
because more and more people are going to be on platforms like these, right? The traditional ways of travel agents and all are kind of fizzling out. So brands like Adidas, has been working for us since with us since day one. We also work with a few hotels, just because hotels. So Adidas is like sports, right? Sports golf. They sell
Yeah.
golf stuff. Hotels are places where golfers need to stay when they travel for golf, and that's where we work with brands like Ramada, like EQ, Kuala Lumpur. These are like mid-range, high-end hotels that golfers want to stay at. Recently, we've also started working with brands that are unrelated to golf, like Samsung, where they run their high-end TVs and high-end phone campaigns. They won't run their lower range phones just because they want to target the affluent market. So it will be like the most expensive phones that they have, the most expensive
Yeah.
TVs that they have. And they run those on Dimples as well. We also probably have an upcoming campaign with Volvo, so auto cars. I mean, auto and golf has always gone together, right? The Mercedes,
Yep,
the
for sure.
BMWs, the Volvos, the Audis have always had association. So these brands are also coming on board to see how they can tackle the audiences here on the app.
And that's really interesting, man, because I think people kind of underestimate the power of having a community and like a very engaged community. Because everyone's like, oh, I've got 50 million visitors to my website, but like they're not really engaged. There are 50 million people coming to your website, but they're leaving pretty quickly. On the Dimples platform, it's 50,000, but extremely engaged, extremely active people. Even if it's 30,000, 20,000, right? It's active, it's engaged. That's more valuable than, if you ask me, than 50 million really not engaged people. Okay, so I've got one last question because I know that we're a little bit short on time, right? So I don't want to keep you for too long. But what's your opinion on branding versus hype? And I'll give you some context because I realize that that might be a little bit of a broad topic, right? So branding is really kind of building, long-term brand equity amongst your customers and stakeholders, and hype is really, like running a guerrilla marketing campaign for a brand that kind of gets you visibility, but people just there's no association really. It's just that it's a grab, it's a quick grab, yeah. What's your opinion? Like, which one? What do you think is most valuable, or do you think there's like a balance that is required? How would you reconcile that for maybe in context of Dimples or maybe in your own personal experience?
I think you need both. Um, so brand is more like when people think about. I mean, the ultimate goal is when people think about golf, you want them to think about Dimples. Just like how you think about cars, then you think of a specific few brands, right?
Hmm.
And if that's the how would I say, ultimately you're trying to create that desire that okay, I really want to do that. So that's from the brand standpoint. Just like how okay, example like Mercedes, it'll be like, oh, cool, I want that, even though I can't have it, but I want it, right? So that is from a brand standpoint, and I think that's what we want to achieve from the Dimples standpoint as well, like how Dimples would make golf cool, so that when you think, oh, that's cool, even if you don't play golf, you want to be associated with it, and eventually you maybe get into the game, right? But that's on a long term thing, right? And it's not built overnight.
Hmm.
But where you say hype, right? And that's important too, right? That creates that instant pull right away when you do something super crazy. And from a Dimple standpoint, we're always open to doing super crazy stuff. And we have done super crazy stuff as well. I mean, I won't go into all the details, right? But some of these crazy stuff might be controversial, and it's normally controversial stuff that goes crazy, right?
Oh yeah,
Things
for
that
sure. Yeah.
things that are not in the norm, right? And not every brand might be open to doing something like this, right? But as a young brand like us, we don't really care that much. Hype is always good. Until a certain point, right, when we have like brand guidelines and stuff, right, which we kind of do, but I think it's important to
Yeah.
create those conversations. So I think equal on both sides.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough, right? Like my personal views, I think branding kind of beats hype, but I also understand the value of hype, right? Like certain streetwear brands and like consumer brands have really they've built their brand from hype. Because it used to be hype, like, oh, we got a really limited edition drop, to now they're associated with that and they've become like a name for everything, right? I've For the life of me, I know exactly who I'm talking about. Supreme, yes, Supreme. Supreme used to be uh, like a small insignificant brand. Now they're kind of like the face of streetwear across the world. Or maybe I'm making a mistake and things have changed, but that used to be the way. That used to be the way. So yeah, no, it's interesting, man, because I think it's interesting hearing how somebody who is running a company but is not a traditional, like not a marketer, you're not a marketer by trade, right? But you're running a company and how you view marketing, because I think marketers, when they talk amongst themselves, marketers, comms, PR people, and whatever it is, right, it's this weird thing where we all kind of say the same thing and everyone's kind of patting each other's back. But I'm like, if you actually talk to your customer, right, the customer is like, I don't understand a word you're saying, or like, that's kind of stupid to me.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
they kind of matter a little bit more than just talking to your peers. you kind of understanding your target audience, and then that's really important to. I think that's kind of why we're doing this series as well, where we're trying to get different perspectives and see where there's a common ground, or see whether there's anything that we can take from it, because it's too much that we're learning that's, I don't know, it's the same old kind of regurgitated without any sort of understanding that things are changing, things are evolving.
Yeah.
All right, man. Yeah. So I think what I mentioned is we're gonna put like links to Dimples, all your social media stuff, all the interesting things you're doing, and then yeah, we'll make sure that everybody in Malaysia and then most of Southeast Asia sees what the amazing work that you guys are doing. All
Great.
right. Thanks for joining us, Dave.
Thank you.